Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. In today's video we're going to look at, review and take you through starting to collect a Duardin Ascendant army of Renown in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. You can find the rules for this particular army of Renown inside White Dwarf issue 506. And so to start off with army composition, this Warhammer Legends Army of Renown as Duardin Ascendant is essentially a mixed Duardin army. When you pick the Fyreslayers, Kharadron Overlords or Cities of Sigmar faction for your army, you can choose for it to instead be a Duardin Ascendant Army of Renown. If you do so, use the faction rules that we'll show in the rest of this video instead of any from the Fyreslayers, Kharadron Overlords or Cities of Sigmar factions. Every unit in your army must be drawn from the units listed below that we'll talk about in just a sec, and all units in your army gain the Duardin Ascendant keyword as well. These roster options first of all include Grombrindal, the White Dwarf, and he must be included in your force and must be your general, and you can include any other Duardin unit from order. Roster wise restrictions: you cannot include any regiments of renown, you can't include any manifestations, and you cannot include faction terrain either. Now, moving on to our battle traits. First of all, we have the Duardin. This is a passive ability where the effect is friendly Duardin Ascendant units are considered unified when they're wholly within 12 inch of at least one Fyreslayers, Kharadron Overlords and Cities of Sigmar Duardin units. So essentially we need, these power triples of, a KO, a Fyreslayer and a Cities of Sigmar unit all working in concert, and that's sort of how the army is going to function. We then have the Ancestors Intended, and we get a lot of these once per sort of phase abilities we can use. The first of these is for the hero phase. We pick a friendly unified Duardin Ascendant Priest to be the target, and we add one to their chanting rolls for the rest of the turn. So you're going to get +1 to chant on Priest is really solid. Now this is a shot, is the ability we use once per turn for the army during a shooting phase. We pick a friendly unified Duardin Ascendant infantry unit to be the target, and we add one to the attacks of their ranged weapons for the rest of the turn. This is really nice and works well on a variety of different units. Obviously Kharadron Overlords will get a lot out of this, but also let's not forget we do have shooting units available in our other Duardin factions as well. I'm thinking the Iron Drakes are probably a particularly good recipient of this. Next is As One Kinfolk. This is a once per turn army ability we can use during the charge phase. We pick up to 3 friendly unified Duardin Ascendant infantry units to be the targets. For the rest of the turn we add one to the number of dice when rolling to make a charge roll for them. So we get 3d6 charges on 3 separate units as long as they're unified. This could be a really cool ability to have. And then lastly we have Settle Every Grudge, Kazuk. Once per turn army, again as always, any combat phase is when it's used. Declare, we pick a friendly unified Duardin Ascendant infantry unit and they get +1 attack with their melee weapons. So all in all we've got a variety of different abilities here. They're all pretty solid, obviously all basing off the fact that we need these units to be unified to get the most out of them. Some of them are certainly going to be easier to maintain. I think when you're building your force you just always need to be remembering to have those 3 units working together at all times. When building a list you build in 3s. And so moving on to our heroic trait. This is called Tireless Purpose. This is a cool ability because each time a friendly Duardin Ascendant infantry unit holding within 12 inch of the character that has this uses a normal move, you can simply add 2 to the distance. So bolstering our Duardin from 4 to 6 inch, I mean that's a 50% extra bonus to your move, is just huge for this army and really does give you some options. Now, we also have an artifact of power called the Valayan Hearth Banner, which is once per battle during your hero phase can be used, and you simply heal D3 every single Duardin Ascendant unit on the battlefield. Once per game, okay, but just an ability to just heal one off can be really cool. This obviously still affects Grombrindal, which is really nice, and wouldn't affect, a bunch of other units as well that potentially can need to get sort of out of bracketing. Now, Prayer Law is next, and the first of these out of two that we have is a unlimited prayer, actually, called Spirit of the White Dwarf. We can pick a friendly Duardin Ascendant priest chant, and they pick a friendly Duardin Ascendant unit within 18 inches of them to use it on, and that target becomes unified. If we do actually get the 8 instead of the 4 to cast this, we can pick 2 units, and the fact that this is unlimited is really nice as well. It does open up when we start losing units to keep things in the fight for longer. Now, our other prayer is Oath of Restoration. This is a 4 to cast on base. It does have a 7+ bonus as well. Essentially, it's ward 6+, and then it goes to ward 5+, which you get this, which is really cool. So you pick a visible friendly objective marker within 18 inch, contested by 2 or more unified units to be the target, make a chanting roll, and then you can give wards to the units there, which is really cool. There's a lot of ways to get quite a bit of ward in this force. And so we have the rules for Grombrindal the White Dwarf. He's obviously going to be an integral part of the army, seeing as we have to take him and he has to be our general when we do. Now, he is a foot hero, 8 health, 4-inch move, 4+ save, control score of 2. That's, an issue on its own, but there are ways around that. We have particularly nice things that can be used to counteract some of those. Now, the first of these sort of things we want to talk about, first of all, is obviously his melee weapon, the Rune Axe of Grimnir. 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 2, damage 3, with crit 2 hits. And it gets better as well because he does have an ability that stops him being auto-slain. He just takes D3 mortals instead. Rune Axe of Grimnir actually gives him 7 attacks on this charge, which is really cool. A Stern Stone means friendly Duardin infantry units wholly within 12 inch of him have a ward 5+, so he really does bolster the defensiveness of the army around him. And we also add 2 to the control scores of friendly Duardin infantry units while wholly within 12 inch of him as well. Not only that, but he has a ward of 3+ by himself. This backed up by 4+ save. He's fairly survivable, and will take, for a small 8 wound character, quite a bit to get off the table. Today's video is sponsored by Gap Games, a fantastic miniature wargaming store in Queensland, Australia. They stock a wide variety of miniature wargames from all things Games Workshop to some of my personal favourites, Conquest, The Last Argument of Kings, and all things Modifius wargames as well. Use our affiliate code in the link below to help support both this fantastic store and the channel as well. And so the first unit we're going to look at, obviously besides Grombrindal, we've talked about him, is a Rune Lord. I think these are a really solid priest option to start out with your force. First of all, the big thing here is the Rune of Spellbreaking, where they can use the Unbind ability as if they had Wizard 1. This is one of the few ways we're going to be able to get that in the army. We obviously have the access to things like Priest 2 on things like the Rune Master, which is another great option for a priest. But I do think the Unbind here really is good. Now, he does have a Forge Fire prayer of his own where he can add some Ren to a Cities of Sigmar Duardin unit, which is nice when you consider we might pair him with some of those. He's just a Priest 1, but other than that, he's got standard sort of Priest attacks that you might expect, and standard sort of Duardin stat line, 5 health, 3+ save, which is nice to have there as well. Next up we have Hammerers. These are one of our sort of more heavy hitting Duardin units, especially in combat. They've got 2 attacks each, hitting on 4s with wounding on 3s, Ren 1, damage 2. They've also got the Oathsworn passive ability. While any friendly Cities of Sigmar Duardin infantry heroes are wholly within their combat range, both this unit and those friendly heroes will have ward 5+. So there can be a 3+, 5+ on their saves and putting out a decent amount of punch as well. Remembering we can increase that Ren to Ren 2 potentially with Forge Fire going on them. So Ren 2 damage 2, pretty solid for a large unit of these guys if you reinforce them. Moving on to the Kharadron Overlord component of our force, and we are going to look at Grundstock Thunderers. I think for me, they are the way to go. Like, if we're bringing KO onto the force, they're definitely bringing the shooting component of our force. I think the only unit that comes close to comparing to them are, of course, Iron Drakes. But Grundstock Thunderers, I think when we have to pair the options of what we can get out of Cities Dwarves, we are going to get more of our combat units out of that, our defensive units, and the shooting is definitely going to come from the KO. So while we may see that the Iron Drakes may be better than some Kharadron Overlord counterparts, the fact we're getting the KO, and this means we continue to be unified with everything, is why we might go for some of the units here. Now, Thunderers themselves have a bunch of shooting. They can put out a lot of Ren 1 shooting. But the big thing for me is if they don't move, they can actually shoot in combat with all of their weapons, which is really nice. This does mean, when the rest of our Duardin units are moving forward, which will happen a lot, we are able to still sort of shoot with these guys if they get stuck in combat, if they go into the lines of the battle. And so onto the Fyreslayers then, we have Hearthguard Berserkers with Flamestrike Poleaxes. The big thing here I like is the fact that we can get some crit mortals into our force. Flamestrike Poleaxes, 2 attacks each, 3s and 3s, Ren 1 damage 2 with crit mortal. They're a solid unit to be punching out some damage. They also have a similar unit to our Hammers, where if they're near a Fyreslayer hero, both the unit and the character near them will get Ward 5+. And they also have Ward 6+ standard as well, like most of our Fyreslayers. And Smoldering Brace is a few extra mortal damage out of the unit as well. So there's going to be another one of our sort of punchy combat units targeting with the Hammers. They're a solid one. 2 damage, crit mortal. There's not a lot of other things we're going to get with that sort of damage potential that we can have in the force. And so, rounding out our force, we actually needed a cheap character to build that first 1,000 points, and the Doomseeker fills this. First of all, he's a Fyreslayer hero, so he's going to make sure that 5-up ward sticks. It gives us another hero to make sure we're not sort of putting everything with our enhancements in one basket. On, say, the Rune Lord we've chosen at the start. Oathbound is his first ability, where you can pick an enemy unit to be his quarry at the start, and he gets to add 1 to hit and wound rolls. And if this unit's destroyed while in combat with its quarry, it actually causes some mortal damage. Runic Power as well means we add 1 to the damage of his melee weapons, or while he has 1 damage point, it adds 2 while he has 2 or more. And, we can sort of work on how we're going to do this as well, making sure he doesn't sort of die on those last couple of wounds with that Rune Banner Overlayer as well. He's, average 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, Ren 1 damage 2, nothing great to write home about, but he does obviously give us another Fyreslayer unit. And at this point we are 2 cities, 2 Fyreslayers, 1 KO, so it's the KO unit that's shooting, probably not going to be in combat as much as the other ones, and so we're able to sort of keep that unified army working as much as possible. And so obviously our force today is going to be the Duardin Ascendant Army of Renown. Our first regiment has our hero as Grombrindal, the White Dwarf. He's our general. And then we have units of Grundstock Thunderers and Hearthguard Berserkers with Flamestrike Poleaxes in his regiment. Regiment number 2 will then have our hero as a Rune Lord, and this model's taken the Valayan Hearth banner, the once per game healing banner. And then his unit is Hammerers, a unit of them to go with him. Meanwhile, Regiment 3 is just going to be a Doomseeker by themselves with heroic trait, tireless purpose. This model is going to be in our front lines anyway, so allowing him to get some extra movement on our other Duardin units that he's near is solid. We hope this video was helpful in getting you started with Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and it was able to give you some ideas and inspiration to start your own force in the game. If you have any other questions at all, please comment down below, and while you're there, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and join our Discord server to check out all our future Warhammer Age of Sigmar content.